Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the fourth and final public listening session for the GIC Plan Benefit Year, July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. My name is Matt Vino, the Executive Director of the Group Insurance Commission, and we're grateful to have you join us here this morning. As I noted, this is the fourth and final of these public sessions that we've held throughout the course of this week. We hold these sessions every year to help finalize the design and the premium rates for health insurance plans that will be offered during the coming annual enrollment period. We also hold these sessions typically in person across the state, but due to the governor's emergency orders to keep us all healthy and safe during COVID-19, we are holding all of these sessions virtually by Zoom. I will note that we are also live streaming this on YouTube and will archive those videos for all of the sessions that will be available on YouTube on our website. Our plan this morning is to do about a 30-minute presentation followed by a question and answer. I will be joined during the presentation by my colleague Denise Donnelly, who heads up our health benefits. And during the question and answer period, I will also be joined by a number of GIC senior staff. Two quick housekeeping items. We'll note for everyone that these sessions are not required for anybody that wants to participate in the coming annual enrollment. This is entirely voluntary and informational only. And I want to note that we will have closed captioning embedded within the live stream and in a link through the Zoom chat. So if you need to avail yourselves of that, you can find that link there. Next slide. So here's our agenda for this morning. We're going to start with a brief overview of the Group Insurance Commission. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. I'm sure those of you who have dialed in are aware of what the GIC is and what we do. I do want to also spend a little bit of time going through a presentation about the various challenges that we face to provide valuable and affordable benefits to you. We will then provide you some information about health insurance premium rates for your plans starting on July 1st. And those rates we are in the process of developing and finalizing with our commission now. And then we will walk through one minor but important plan design change for the coming enrollment period. And for those of you looking for the headline at the outset, I'm happy to provide it. So the GIC has recommended to our commission that we not make any plan design changes that increase cost sharing to our members. We will also be making no changes to the GIC retiree plan. We will then, after that, look a little further down the road to the next big set of decisions that we will have to make regarding health benefits. And this is for coverage beginning in July 1st, 2023. And we want to walk through a bit of an overview of the process that we will use to make those decisions, called the procurement process. And then we'll end with an opportunity, about 60 minutes or so, for questions and answers. Next slide. So tonight we specifically are seeking input on the premium rates and the health insurance plan design for the coming benefit year. As I noted, also our engagement strategy that will be an important part of the procurement process. Our initial plan was to allow for verbal testimony as part of these sessions. But this year, due to the overwhelming number of people who registered, we've had to adjust the format somewhat. You may submit questions at any time during the presentation by using the Q&A tab on your Zoom application, which is typically at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will be reviewing those questions throughout the presentation and will be prepared to answer as many of those as we can in the Q&A period. We have also received, in advance of this and other sessions, a number of questions that have been submitted by email to us. So thank you for all of those. So of course, it will be hard to get to every question with the number of participants, but We do make the commitment to do 3 things after these sessions are completed. Number 1, we will compile and publish on our website a frequently asked questions FAQ document. We will be, again, compiling and posting on our website a comprehensive report of these sessions. And we will also be presenting a summary of what we've learned during these sessions to our commission at their next meeting, which is the 11th of February. So you can see all of those materials on our website. I also want to encourage those who may wish to submit a statement or perhaps a more lengthy statement, where we strongly encourage you to submit those to us at the email address that's shown on this slide, gic.info@mass.gov. All of this information, as I've noted, will be available on our website. Also, I do want to note that if you have questions or concerns about your specific coverage, including any personal details about your coverage, that you contact us directly through the contact form link noted at the bottom of this slide, or by dialing our team of operations specialists who would be happy to help walk through specific details. We want to make sure that we're helpful to you, but also want to protect your privacy. Next slide. Thank you. We're going to start, as I noted, with a little overview of the GIC. Next slide. And of course, we start with our mission. It's a fairly straightforward and simple mission, but I do want to call out 2 specific elements of the mission. And of course, at the top line and center is at the center of all that we do, and it's you, our members. I'm one who still holds the belief, sometimes old-fashioned, that public service in any capacity is an honorable thing, and you deserve benefits that you can count on. We honor your service to the Commonwealth and to your municipalities, and we actually are here to serve you and to serve with you. The 74 employees of the GIC also serving the Commonwealth. And the second item to note or to call out here in the second line in the middle, high quality and affordable benefits. So what you'll take away from that is that we really are trying to balance 2 important objectives. Certainly providing you high quality, comprehensive benefits that you can count on, but also at a premium and at cost shares that you can afford. So those are that you can afford, but also those that help pay in premium for you, those being the taxpayers of the Commonwealth and local cities and towns. So the onus is really on us to balance those 2 important objectives and provide you value. Next slide. So to achieve that mission, the GIC has identified 3 core strategies, and I'll start here in the middle, managing for value. So we seek to design and make available to you a meaningful choice of insurance options and benefits that meet your needs. And to the left, we aim to provide you with a set of modern tools so that you can make decisions as easily as you can. Interacting with the GIC shouldn't be a hassle. It should be as easy as using the same kinds of tools, modern tools, online tools that we all use today in the modern economy when we purchase goods and services. And then to the far right here, we're modernizing the GIC. This is really critical to achieving both of the core strategies. To the left, we need to have a modern work environment with modern tools to empower our GIC team to accomplish our mission. Next slide. So these are just a few additional facts, numbers. The GIC covers 462,000 total members, 110,000 of which are Medicare subscribers. That makes the GIC the largest single purchaser of health insurance in the Commonwealth, with a total budget of $2.1 billion, you'll see in the lower right. We are also governed by a 17-member commission, which I'll say more about in a moment, and partner with a wide variety of public entities and agencies in the Commonwealth at the state, regional, and local level. Next slide. So I want to acknowledge a really highly talented group of commissioners who form our governing board. As you can see, they represent a wide variety of interests, backgrounds, and expertise. They are, in essence, my 17 bosses. We, as a senior team, meet with them roughly monthly to make all of the key important decisions around your coverage. This morning, we are joined by two members of our commission, our chair, Valerie Sullivan, and our vice chair, Bobby Kaplan, representing the National Association of Government Employees. Thank you so much for joining us today and for all of your guidance and counsel to me and to the rest of the team. So thank you for joining us. Next slide. So this is a brief summary of the benefits that the GIC offers. We'll be talking a lot today about the health benefits, but we also offer dental, vision, life insurance, long-term disability. We offer flexible spending accounts for healthcare and dependent care. And we also offer an employee assistance program, which many of you will know by the name Mass for You. Next slide. So this is just a brief slide about how the GIC is funded. We're funded from a few sources, the main ones being the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, if you're a state employee or a retiree, and cities and towns, if you're employed by a city or town. In addition, of course, our members contribute to their premium through their paychecks, or if you're a retiree, through your pension check. Combined, these sources comprise the $2.1 billion total budget for the agency. Next slide. So the way the GIC health benefits are financed, without getting too much into the weeds here, is a little different than what many of you may be used to. The Group Insurance Commission is self-insured, which means that the GIC and ultimately the Commonwealth of Massachusetts holds the financial risk, not the insurance companies that you are enrolled in. So when you receive healthcare services from a doctor or a hospital, they send a bill in the form of a claim to the insurance company that in turn pays that hospital or doctor. The insurance companies then bill the Group Insurance Commission on a weekly basis, and we in turn reimburse that company for those claims. So if over the course of a year, members use more healthcare services than we expect, it's the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, not our members, that make up the difference. And that has, in the past, in some years, been in excess of $100 million. So there's a substantial insurance role for the Commonwealth and ultimately the taxpayers. Next slide. So the challenges that we face at the GIC in offering our members high-value, affordable benefits, they are not unique to us. They are the challenges that face everyone in the Commonwealth, no matter how you receive your coverage. I could easily spend an hour on this slide, but allow me to just pull out a few key points. Healthcare costs are not sustainable, and they continue to grow. That is true whether you have private insurance or GIC insurance. We did have a few years recently of flat premiums, no increase, and then a few years of increases in the lower single digits. But we have started to see over the last 2 years, those numbers start to rise. So that is no small thing for sure for the taxpayers, nor for our members. One of my commissioners, Tim Sullivan, who represents the MTA, is good to always remind us that a retired teacher's pension averages only about $42,000 a year. So we keep the rising cost of care and the burden that it represents to you forefront in our minds. Secondly, just note consolidation, competition, purchasing power. It's hard to pick up the paper these days without reading about a big hospital or hospital system purchasing another hospital. And when that happens, the evidence does show pretty strongly that those things do not tend to decrease costs, but to actually increase costs. Large, well-known brand name hospitals grow larger by acquiring hospitals. That gives them more market leverage, market power, and they're able to use that to charge higher and higher prices. At the GIC, we have the opportunity to push back on that and use our own purchasing power. I mentioned at the outset, 462,000 members, $2.1 billion. But we have historically chosen instead to divide up that purchasing power among 6 different insurance companies and 11 different insurance plans. And that has served to really dilute our purchasing power and our ability to push back on that growing market power of providers. So this is going to have to be a challenge that we face. There are a number of ways that we can do that, and we'll be looking to develop those ideas over the coming few years. Finally, health insurance seems to get more and more complex and confusing every year. We often go to the doctor, use our insurance card, assume that we're covered, only to find out that we get a bill from the doctor or hospital that we weren't expecting and we don't really understand. So at the GIC, we have also tried to use design of plans and incentives, financial incentives in a plan for our members to choose a lower cost but still high quality hospital or doctor by having a lower copay for going to those facilities. But instead, what we observe through our claims is that members still go to the high cost providers and frequently incur substantial cost sharing. If you're going to an inpatient, if you're admitted inpatient to a hospital, you're going to incur up to a $1,500 copay, and we do see that that doesn't really disincent the kind of behavior that we're trying to avoid, which drives up costs for everybody. So these are the challenges that we face in trying to, again, strike the balance that's embedded in our mission. I'm going to now turn it over to Denise Donnelly, my colleague, who is going to walk through the next section relative to premiums. Denise.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Matt. Good morning, everyone. Next slide, please. So what I'll talk you through now is the process that the GIC follows every year in determining rates, the premiums that members will pay for the upcoming fiscal year. So we started back in December by presenting to the Commission preliminary pricing changes. So what we refer to as status quo pricing. And what that means is if there were no changes to the health plans, to the number of members and the composition of members in each plan, if members didn't change how they used healthcare, what would the upcoming fiscal year rates be given our experience through that period of time? So we presented that back in December. Then on January 21st, we went to the Commission and presented proposed plan design changes, along with the associated aggregate financial impact of those changes. And as Matt said earlier, the GIC is not recommending any changes that result in increases in copays or deductibles for members. And there will be one change that we'll be talking about in a little bit. So we presented that on January 21st. Next, what we'll do is during the February 11th meeting, we will present the one plan design change to the Commission for their vote, and assuming they vote to approve, we'll then be in a position to go forward with our actuary and model out individual premium changes. So at that point in time, we'll begin to be able to project what the individual premiums will be for each plan for each coverage level. And then at the March 4th meeting, we will present those specific premiums to the commission and they will vote. And at that point, we'll be ready to move forward with annual enrollment. Next slide. So let's take this slide slowly. There's a lot here. So first of all, this is what we presented as the preliminary status quo pricing. And what you see here is the expected fiscal year 22 aggregate premium increase. And what that means is for all of the Medicare and non-Medicare plans combined, this is the expected average aggregate increase. So at the low end, we're seeing plus 4%, at the high end, plus 7%, but the expected increase is plus 5.8%. That's overall for all the plans on average. That doesn't mean that your premium's going up 4, 5.8, or 7%. We're not at that point yet where we can pinpoint by plan, by coverage level, what the increase will be. It just means for all the plans combined, that's the average expected aggregate increase for fiscal year 22. And you'll see above the spectrum arrow, market benchmark low end plus 5%, market benchmark high end plus 7%. So what that tells us is in the healthcare marketplace in Massachusetts, other sponsors and insurance carriers are seeing increases of between 5 and 7%. So the GIC is right in the middle. And that tells us that, yes, this is what we're seeing is what everybody else is seeing. So it's not out of the ordinary. Next slide, please. So once we make our way through that process, we develop the specific premiums for each plan and coverage level. We'll then be ready to open up annual enrollment, which will take place between April 7th and May 5th of 2021 for coverage effective July 1st of 2021. Thank you. Next slide. And Matt.
Thank you, Denise. The next section of the presentation, we will review plan design. Next slide, please. So here I'll start where I started in the beginning, which is that the GIC staff recommended to our commission at their meeting last week, and the commission agreed that we should make no changes to plan design this year that would increase cost sharing to our members. We generally prefer not to make substantial plan design changes when we are in the middle of our contracts with the health plans. We understand that those cause disruption for our members, and we were particularly concerned, given where we are with the pandemic, to maintain stability in our plan design for you this year. I will note also that there are no changes being proposed for our Medicare supplement plans, though it is possible that the federal government makes changes to Medicare that could impact your coverage. Next slide. So this will look familiar. This is our list of plans and the carriers who offer them. We will, as we are this year, next year, we will be offering the same 11 plans to the same 6 carriers. So we're not making changes here. Next slide. So we do want to take the opportunity to address something that may be on some of your minds. You may have heard that Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan have recently announced that they have joined as one combined organization. I have been, as executive director, been in touch with the CEOs of both health plans and expressed our strong interest that there be as little disruption to our members as possible as a result of this merger. And they have each expressed to me that they share that important goal. You may read in the coming months that they announce a new name for the combined company, but I can assure you, or I have been assured, that they will both continue to operate as separate companies for some time. So if you are currently enrolled in either of these plans, there will be no immediate change to your policy, and you should continue using the member ID card that you have. Furthermore, for this coming annual enrollment, members will still be able to maintain enrollment in either plan or newly enroll in either of those two plans. And we can say the same thing about next year's annual enrollment as well. So we expect not much change in the short term here, and we will continue to work closely with the two companies to make sure that there's as little disruption as possible. I will note here that the combined company has made available on the web link that you'll note on the slide information about the merger. And I would also suggest that members keep an eye on the GIC's website. We do have some of our own information up there, and we will continue to update that. Next slide. So as Denise noted, there is only one, and it's a relatively minor change to our plan designs that we have recommended to our commission. You will note that it is not an increase in co-payments, it's actually a decrease. The proposal is to allow 3 behavioral health visits by telehealth without a copay. I will note here that through our Mass 4U Employee Assistance Program, there are 3 similar therapeutic visits that are available to members without a copay. This does not replace those. This is in addition to those, and these are through your health plan. So we saw this important change as really necessary for a few reasons. One is to maintain access to this really necessary service, understanding that the challenges in the behavioral health area during the pandemic are particularly acute, but also it maintains and it actually expands some access to services where today there are some significant impediments to access for behavioral health. So we feel this is an important change and new benefit to provide to you. Next slide. So this is where I, forgive me for a moment. So this is where I turn it over to Denise. We're gonna, she's gonna walk through a little bit the procurement process. And what I would note is we are not making changes this year, as I noted, to substantial changes to the plan design, but it doesn't at all affect the importance of really addressing the underlying drivers of cost and increasing cost in the healthcare system and for you, our GIC members. So we will look to the procurement process to help make some of those important decisions. So Denise?
Thanks, Matt. Next slide, please. So before we talk through what the upcoming procurement process will look like, we thought it made sense to just step back and explain what procurement is. And procurement is the process the Commonwealth uses to contract with private companies to perform state-related work. It's governed by Massachusetts law, and there's an emphasis on ethics and transparency in the process. And it's the process the GIC uses to choose health insurance plans and other types of coverage, usually for a period of 3 to 5 years. So most contracts are 3 years with 2 one-year options to renew. So that's what procurement is. Next slide. So right now we're in year 3 of a 5-year contract cycle. And that means that we're gearing up for the procurement process that will take us to wherever we land on July 1st, 2023, which is the end of this current 5-year contract cycle. In the meantime, we're listening, as we hope to do today, learning from you, our members, and other stakeholders, and looking for opportunities to solicit input that will inform the procurement process as we move forward. Once we've gathered all that input, we will begin the formal procurement process that will take us to new coverage as of July 1st, 2023. I can tell you that no decisions have been made. There's no preconceived outcome. We're just not there yet. So as is the case every year, in April and May of 2023, you'll have the opportunity to choose your coverage for July 1st, 2023. Next slide. And as Matt said, we're going to use this opportunity, the procurement process, to try to take on some of the challenges that Matt set forth earlier. We don't have to tell you that healthcare is very complicated. It's got lots of challenges for providers, for members, for plan sponsors like the GIC, and we're going to take this opportunity to really see what we can do to deliver the most value to our members. Next slide. So, what are our guiding principles for the procurement? Well, first of all, the procurement process will be anchored in our mission. And we really are setting out to give members easy to understand, meaningful, and affordable choices. And by affordable, we mean affordable in the context of Massachusetts healthcare marketplace. We want to, simplify the experience of choosing health plans and using healthcare for our members. We want, by the time we arrive at July 1st, 2023, we want everyone, including our members, to understand that we have arrived at the best possible solution given the complexity of the environment in which we're operating. Next slide. Matt.
Thank you, Denise. Next slide. So here we're going to jump into a high-level overview of our engagement strategy. So key to our success in this process, as Denise noted, is our ability to engage with all of our important stakeholders. We need to start by listening to and learning from a variety of sources as we make these important decisions ahead of us. And of course, we start with you, our members. That's why we're here this morning. It's why it's so important and why we're so grateful for you for joining us. We will also learn from our colleagues in state government, in the legislature, in the executive branch, and many of you are represented by labor unions. So we have been and will continue to be in close contact with your representatives on the labor side. We will engage with our partners in local government, our municipal city and town partners, and others in state government, including the Health Policy Commission and the Center for Health Information and Analysis. There are a lot of really talented experts who can help us understand the healthcare marketplace and what our real opportunities will be through the next procurement. Next slide. So we're just about wrapped up with the presentation, but I do want to note, as I have a few times during the presentation, that we have a wealth of information on the GIC website that will go into more detail on some of the items that I've addressed here today. But there's also a great deal of information about COVID-19 and your benefits. We get lots of questions about retirement and what steps you need to make as you move to retirement as it relates to your benefits. We will touch on a few of those in the question and answer period, but I do want to strongly encourage folks to visit our website to keep an eye on information that we will continue to update going forward. Next slide. So with that, we will conclude the presentation portion of the listening section. We will stop talking and actually start listening and answering your questions. So I will note that we've had staff throughout this session compiling questions. We will attempt to get to as many of them as we can. As I noted, I've got a number of colleagues who will help me answer those questions. I think for some questions that are submitted in the Q&A function, we may even be able to directly respond to those, and those will show up on your Q&A feed as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Erica Schiavelli, our Deputy Executive Director, to help MC the Q&A section.
Thanks, Matt. As you mentioned, we've gotten quite a few questions in the Q&A function, and we have been able to answer some of them. Some of them we've opted to answer live. Many of them are about retirement. And so to give us a high-level overview of retirement and to address a lot of those questions that have been asked, we're going to turn it to Paul Murphy, who's our Director of Operations, to give us that high level.
Thank you, Erica. As Erica mentioned, we're getting a lot of questions regarding retirement, life insurance, dental, and Medicare. So what I'd like to do is spend a few minutes to do a high-level overview of what you need to know about retirement and when you go on Medicare. First off, anything I talk about today, I just want to remind everyone that we do have resources available to you after this session. As Matt mentioned, on our website, we have a retirement section, and we also have a turning 65 video for people going on Medicare, which is very helpful. Also on our website, we have what we call benefit decision guides. Many of you have probably seen those guides over the years, but they're out there, and we have Medicare and non-Medicare benefit decision guides. I just want to keep in mind that the guides that are out there for this current plan year, which runs from July 1st to June 30th, 2021. The new books will be up on the website at the end of March, beginning of April, for all coverages effective July 1st. So the new books will be up there at the end of March, beginning of April. The books will also have all the new premiums for the Medicare and non-Medicare plans. So please keep that in mind when you're looking at the website. So first off, retirement. What do you need to do? When you decide on a date for retirement, the first thing that GIC encourages you to do is have a conversation with your HR department where you work. There is a form required for you to complete, as well as your HR department, to send it into group insurance to ensure continuous coverage when you leave employment. What that does for us is when we receive the form, we process the form, and we need to set you up on what we call a monthly billing. From the time you leave employment till the time you get your monthly pension check, there is a gap. During that gap, GIC will bill you at home directly for all of your coverages. We encourage people to please make sure you pay the bill. Many times people believe that in the future, the premiums will come out of a pension check, which is true, but they will come out when you start receiving the pension check. During that gap, paying the bill is extremely important to keep your coverage intact going into retirement. Once you collect a pension, GIC will take the premiums from the pension check. Medicare. Medicare can be complicated, many different situations regarding husband and wife, eligible, not eligible, over 65, under 65. So what I'd like to do is a high-level session on what you need to know about when you turn 65 and if you are retired. And hopefully it'll help some of the general questions that we see, but there's also specific questions that people are asking us, and it's hard to answer those questions because we need to make sure we have to ask additional personal questions, and that's not something that we would like to do in the forum, and we encourage you to use our online contact form if you have specific questions regarding what happens to your GIC coverage. Basically, you have Medicare. There are two parts. There's a Medicare Part A, which is hospital insurance, and there's Medicare Part B, which is doctor's insurance. Medicare Part A is free. There is no cost for that. Medicare Part B has a monthly premium around $141 per month. To find out if you're eligible for Medicare, you need to contact Social Security directly. They will inform you and any family member if they are eligible for Medicare Part A and Part B. GIC does not determine the eligibility for Medicare. If you are eligible for Medicare Part A and Part B, under state law, you are required to join Medicare Part A and Part B to retain your GIC coverage when you retire. Now, what happens high level? I can tell you that when GIC receives your retirement form, if you and or your spouse are over age 65 at retirement, when we receive that form, GIC will send a letter to both you and your spouse asking if you are eligible for Medicare Part A and Part B. If you are eligible, you need to select one of our Medicare health plans that are on that form and return the form to GIC. Once we receive that form, we will enroll both you and your spouse in the Medicare plan. So we reach out to you if you are over age 65 at retirement to roll you into one of our Medicare plans. If you are under age 65 before you retire, GIC will keep you in your non-Medicare plan 3 months before your 65th birthday or your spouse's 65th birthday. GIC will send a letter to you to start the process about enrolling in a Medicare plan. Again, you can start the session, the enrollment with Medicare 3 months prior to your 65th birthday. Medicare allows you and your spouse to enroll in Medicare 3 months before your 65th birthday, the month of your 65th birthday, and 3 months after your 65th birthday. But again, GIC will also send out a letter for you to initiate this process with Social Security. We have a lot of people that have older spouse, younger spouse, and what they need to do. If you as the member are retired from the Commonwealth and you are covering a spouse, if your spouse turns 65 before you, your spouse is required to enroll in a Medicare plan with GIC as long as your spouse has Medicare Part A and Part B. You, as the member, if you are under 65, will simply remain in the plan that you have until you reach age 65, and vice versa. So if you are over age 65, have to enroll in a Medicare plan, and you have a younger spouse under 65, same rule. You can elect a Medicare plan with GIC, and your spouse will stay in the non-Medicare plan until he or she turns age 65. We get questions on members that, what if I continue working after age 65? We encourage people, if you are working after age 65 and you are covering a spouse on your plan, you can enroll in Medicare Part A when you turn 65. There is no need for you to enroll in Medicare Part B. As long as you continue to work and you are covering a spouse on your plan, there is no need to enroll in Medicare Part B until you, as the member, decide to retire. Once you decide to retire, you will then have a window of 7 months to apply for your Medicare Part B coverage. So again, if you are going to continue working after age 65, you only need to enroll in Medicare Part A. You can defer the Part B, and the same rule applies for your spouse. And once you decide to retire, you then can enroll in Medicare Part B. GIC will contact you and send out an enrollment form to enroll in a Medicare plan. So you do have that 7-month window. There's no need to enroll in Medicare Part B if you, as the member, continue working after 65. We have people that ask us, what happens if I'm never eligible for Medicare? That is true. Some people are not eligible for Medicare. In that instance, when GIC sends you a letter asking about Medicare eligibility, you will be required to go to Medicare. You can enroll online or call their general number to find out if you are eligible. But if you are not eligible for Medicare, what you can do is they're going to make you apply for your Medicare coverage online. They will also, at that point, send you a letter of denial for whatever reason you didn't pay into Social Security or you don't have enough quarters. That letter of denial needs to be sent to GIC in order for you to continue your benefits beyond age 65 And GIC does not put you in a Medicare plan. We simply keep you in the plan that you have after age 65. So again, it's important. Many people think they've never paid in and they don't have to do anything, but Medicare requires you to apply online to get that denial, send that denial into GIC, and we will continue the coverage that you have in place in the non-Medicare plan. Same rule applies for your spouse. But I want to encourage people to let them know that Medicare Part A and Part B, the eligibility is through Social Security. They're the ones that need to determine if you are eligible. In some cases, if you have a husband and wife, husband has never worked under the Social Security, but a spouse may have worked under Social Security, you as a member might be eligible for Medicare Part A and Part B through your spouse. So again, we encourage people to check with Social Security directly to make sure you get the proper determination if you are eligible. Life insurance. This is one area that GIC receives a lot of inquiries from our retirees regarding life insurance. There are two policies that somebody has in the Commonwealth. One is referred to a basic life insurance policy in the amount of $5,000. The $5,000 goes in line with your health insurance. So if you have health insurance with GIC, it's rolled into that monthly premium for the $5,000. But many people have what we call optional life insurance or supplemental life insurance. That supplemental life insurance can get extremely expensive upon retirement. We encourage everyone to look at the premiums for the optional life insurance when you decide to retire. You are allowed to keep that coverage in force. There is no need to cancel or decrease it if you decide not to. However, because it does get expensive after age 70, every 5 years after age 70, the premium does go up. So you can cancel and decrease at that time, or you can cancel, decrease the coverage anytime throughout the year when you after retirement. You don't have to wait for annual enrollment to make changes to your life insurance. So we encourage people to look at that premiums after age 70. GIC also, as a courtesy, sends you a letter 2 months before Dee's birthday on turning age 70, 75, 80. We will send a letter advising you of the new increase in premium. You can then also respond to us on that letter by either canceling or decreasing the coverage at that point. But it is a term policy. There is no cash surrender value. It is strictly a death benefit. So I encourage people to look at the cost to retain that coverage after retirement. Dental. This is one area where, GIC does not cover all of the dental for all state employees. There are many people out there that are in higher education, trial court, through a union. They receive their dental benefits. This is where we encourage people to look at the dental benefit when they leave employment. So if you're getting it through a union, higher education, or the trial court, there is most likely an option to continue your dental benefit once you retire. Most organizations allow you to keep it through COBRA. COBRA is, you pay the 100% premium and you can keep that coverage for 18 months upon retirement, but the coverage is exactly what you have when you were working. You also have a choice that at retirement, you can also join GIC's retiree plan. GIC has the retiree dental plan through MetLife, but the choice is yours upon retirement. So you can either continue coverage through the COBRA option with your employer, union, or you can join GIC's retiree dental plan. But you have to do your homework. You have to compare the benefits between the two and decide which one you want upon retirement. I will tell people that if you do not take the GIC retiree dental plan at retirement, you can enroll in it any annual enrollment following your retirement. So you are not required to enroll at that time, but you can pick it up during any annual enrollment period. If you decide to keep your dental plan through COBRA through your employer, when the COBRA expires at the end of that time, you can then enroll in GIC's retiree dental plan. Another question we get for people going back to Medicare is, do I have to change to the plan during annual enrollment because I'm going on Medicare throughout the year? The answer is no. GIC will send the letter to you, like I said, 2 months or 3 months before your 65th birthday. At that time, you're free to pick any GIC Medicare plan when you receive that letter. So you do not have to change the plan during open enrollment if you are turning 65 throughout the year. You can do it upon your 65th birthday. We have retirees that ask, what if I'm covered through my spouse's employer? Can I pick up GIC coverage at retirement? The answer is yes. That is a qualifying event at retirement for you and or your spouse to enroll in a GIC plan once you retire. Thereafter, you can only enroll in GIC's plans during our annual enrollment period. So I think high level, again, it was very brief, but hopefully I touched on some of the subjects, and I'm going to turn it back over to Erica. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. It looks like we've got some additional questions as follow-up to your kind of high-level overview. So I would encourage folks, if there are specific questions to your kind of personal coverage, you can certainly visit the mass.gov forms, contact the GIC, which is the link that's showing up on the PowerPoint presentation now, and a member of our team will be able to assist you directly. The next that we've gotten quite a few questions on are the FSA and long-term disability. So I wanted to turn it over to Cameron McBean, who is our resident expert on those two areas, so we can address some of those questions as well.
Thank you, Erica. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start off talking about the flexible spending accounts, what we refer to as FSAs, administered by Benefit Strategies. Now, these plans are only available to active employee GIC members. We've seen questions over the last couple of days, why can't retirees participate? Well, it's because these accounts are only meant to be funded directly by employer contributions. We offer two types of flexible spending accounts, the healthcare and dependent care FSAs. Healthcare can be used for any qualifying medical and dental expenses for you and your dependents. Dependent care is for child care services or for someone to look after a disabled adult dependent that may be in your household. There have been some challenges related to COVID. You know, we all know that daycares closed down. And in response to that, Congress has taken a couple of actions over the last year. Initially, there was some relief offered within the CARES Act. And as a result, you can now purchase over-the-counter medications, either with your FSA medical debit card or submit receipts for reimbursement. And we were able to extend the grace period that is ordinarily in place for fiscal year 20. Initially, it was extended through the end of December of 2020. But as a result of the Consolidated Appropriations Act that was passed in the first week of January, we've been scrambling with Benefit Strategies to extend that grace period even further, and that you will now have until June 30th of this year, 2021, to use up any unused funds in either of your FSA accounts. Unfortunately, nothing that Congress or the IRS has done would make it possible to have a complete refund of unused funds, but we're doing everything we can to make sure everyone has those opportunities not to lose any money. Those are the big highlights for the previous fiscal year. We've also made some changes for the current year as a result of the Consolidated Act. You will be able to make a prospective change to your elections at any point in time without a qualifying change of status or a qualifying event. So ordinarily, you know, there would have to be a change to your household or a change in your daycare in order to change those corresponding elections. But you can do it on a go forward basis at any point in time by going to the Benefit Strategies website. You can also ask your GIC coordinator for additional assistance or if you have any questions. Finally, I would like to let everyone know, Paul touched on our life insurance benefit, particularly with how it interplays upon retirement or as we get older. We will be changing vendors from the Hartford, who's been our life and accidental death and dismemberment carrier for some time. We're taking that insurance product as well as our long-term disability, and both of those will be moving to MetLife effective July 1st of 2021. We will be seeing some premium reductions. They're not huge, but people will pay less money in many cases, particularly our older members will see greater premium reductions. And I believe with that, all the points we were going to touch upon, unless there are other questions that have come in.
Cameron, while we've got you, we did have a couple of questions related to dental. So one that I saw was, is there a separate card to use for dental?
Yes, you can get a dental card, and you should get one in the mail from MetLife when you enroll. If you don't, for some reason, you can always reach out to them and they will issue you a new one. The vision card for retirees, there's not one. It's simply a matter of reaching out to them and letting them know you're planning on getting some eyewear, and they will help arrange for the discount or reimbursement to you once you've made your purchase.
Great, thank you. I think there was another dental question that popped up, but while I find that one, we have two related questions that are for Matt. Let me just pull those up here, one moment. So the first question is, how many board members are people of color? How many are Hispanics? And the second somewhat related question is, has the GIC voiced concern over the disparity in COVID as it relates to people of color?
Yeah, great questions, certainly timely and urgent questions. I'll take the second one first. And the short answer to the question is yes, we have raised our concern about the impact of COVID-19 on Black and Brown communities. For those that may not have appreciated the depth and pervasiveness of health disparities across the country, but certainly as well here in Massachusetts, then I think that COVID-19 has really helped them understand that this remains a major challenge for us. So for those of you who don't know, I just joined the GIC as executive director last spring, just as COVID was hitting. And it's very important to me that we as an agency develop a diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda that has a number of different elements to it. I would say right in the middle of that will be a really robust strategy to do whatever it is that we can do as a payer to address and close health disparities, to address social determinants of health more broadly, and, frankly, to help dismantle some of the structures of institutional racism that exist in our healthcare system and exist broadly in our society. So we do have a role. I'd go back to our size, 462,000 members, $2.1 billion. We're a substantial influence in the healthcare market. And I think the good news is that it gives us a real opportunity to be a constructive player with an anti-racist agenda. So that is what I fully intend to do. I will assure those listening that my commission shares that deeply. I will say that we do have more work to do to make sure that our commission represents the diversity of the membership that we serve. We have one person of color on our commission of the 17, and that we need to make progress there. I will say just internally within the agency as well, we have we do report to the state several times over the course of a year about the diversity of our internal staff, and overall our numbers do represent a very diverse staff. I want to say that we're around 40% non-white within the staff, but we also need to do a better job of promoting and supporting talent into our senior leadership team. So I want to assure people these are challenges that really resonate with me, as they do with the rest of my team and with our commission. One specific area that I would suggest that folks follow along with our commission is as it relates to data around race, ethnicity, and language. I would say one of those kind of pernicious impacts that are kind of structurally racist in nature is that we don't even have really sound data to understand the true kind of texture of the diversity of our membership. So we can't develop sound, effective strategies to address institutional racism or disparities unless we understand how they, what the nature of our membership is. This is not a challenge that's unique to the Group Insurance Commission. This is a long-standing problem. I am encouraged to see that there is a real heightened awareness that this is a problem that needs to be resolved and needs to be resolved with urgency. We are working closely and will continue to with our colleagues in state government. The Health Policy Commission has identified this specific challenge, as has the Attorney General's office. We also work very closely with our carriers to understand the steps that they are taking to institute programs to address social determinants of health. And even just as recently as this week, had a very in-depth discussion with two of our carriers on this question of race and ethnicity data. So I hope you hear from us that this is a priority at the GIC. It's multifaceted as a diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda, and would encourage those who have a particular interest in this, which ultimately should be all of us, to continue to stay engaged with us. I hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Matt. That's really helpful. We have another series of questions here. This one I think is probably best for Denise. When will naturopaths be approved under the GIC for those who want to take a natural approach to healing?
We don't have any plans at the moment to add naturopaths. Many people ask about acupuncture, massage. There's so many alternative delivery systems, but at the moment, there's nothing under consideration to be adding those.
Thanks, Denise.
Yep.
Let's see. Okay, we have another question here. I'm on the finance committee of a municipality enrolled in the GIC. Can you discuss the lower utilization of medical services due to COVID and how it relates to the GIC budget and premiums? And that may be either for Matt or for Jim.
Could you repeat the question, Erica? Sorry.
Sure thing. I am on the finance committee of a municipality enrolled in the GIC. Can you discuss the lower utilization of medical services due to COVID and how it relates to the GIC budget and premiums?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that we've spent a lot of time focusing on. And first of all, I'll say that I did earlier in my career. I served on the city council in Salem and was 2 times the chair of our finance committee. So I completely understand your perspective on these issues and where you're coming from. So when COVID hit, we had already set our premium rates for the current fiscal year that we are in. We did soon after that, as COVID hit, which actually hit essentially on my first day at the GIC, we did see a substantial reduction in the utilization of healthcare services as the measures taken to protect the public health kept people away from their doctor's office and from the hospital and from the emergency rooms. We did see so there was a sharp decline last spring. It did rebound fairly quickly over the summer months into the fall. We did see a substantial use of telehealth for our members to maintain access to office visits, behavioral health, which was especially encouraging, and a number of other services. So I think that helped to kind of stabilize utilization. We did, however, at the tail end of last fiscal year and through this fiscal year, see an extended period where we were under budget per our projections, as you would imagine that would be the case. But trying to look forward and establish rates for this year, given all the uncertainty around COVID-19, was especially challenging. So there are a variety of reasons why utilization would be down and stay down, but there are also a substantial number of dynamics that increase costs. Certainly the acute treatment for those who have COVID-19, testing, and now the new vaccines becoming available, those will all increase cost. So it's a complex set of dynamics that we are trying to manage to make sure that we have our premiums most closely track what our expected utilization will be through the coming year. I hope that partially provides an answer. I will say, just as I said, and I'll ask Jim if he wants to chime in here, Jim Rust, our CFO, but it's just an extremely challenging time. The uncertainty that we all face during COVID-19 clouds a lot of what we do as well. And we do our best to try to sort through those dynamics and again, balance those competing objectives in our mission.
Yeah, I think you covered all the main points, Matt. I will just add that there's a little bit of a timing, as you alluded to, Matt, issue with the budget and the rate setting. So the budget is set a little bit before the rate setting, and of course, next year's budget and premiums are based on what we think next year's unit cost and utilization will be, and that's one of the bottom line things that makes them disconnect a little from each other.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'd note too is that while we have our own lane at the GIC and our own unique budget dynamics and premium development dynamics, but we also keep a very close eye on trends in the private insurance marketplace as well, to make sure that we're not seeing any unique dynamics, and we aren't. So as Denise noted in the premium development slide, our projected aggregate increase in rates for the coming year is very much in line with what we are seeing in the commercial market space, as well as other self-insured entities like the GIC.
Thanks, Matt and Jim. Let's see. We've gotten a couple questions about this concept of a +1 program, or a +1 plan rather. So Denise, if you could talk a little bit high level about kind of what that concept is, and answer why it is that we don't have one.
Sure. So we've looked at this many times in the past, offering employee plus one or employee plus children in addition to offering family coverage. And the challenge that we face is that when we look at those options, the premiums for families skyrockets. And so it's really about walking that fine line between making more choices available and pricing families out of coverage. So the more you slice up the population, the less you're spreading the risk around, and the higher costs are going to be for certain segments of the population. So we'll continue to look at this and examine it again with the procurement coming up, but that's why we haven't offered it in the past.
Thanks, Denise. I think another question for you while we've got you. Are there site of service cost differentials, such as moving orthopedic services to standalone ambulatory surgical center instead of a hospital?
I'm not really sure I understand that question. Can you read it again?
Sure. Let's see. Are there site of service cost differentials, such as moving orthopedic services to a standalone ambulatory surgical center rather than in a hospital?
Well, that depends on where you get your ambulatory surgical care done. In principle, it should cost less to get orthopedic surgery done at an ambulatory surgical center than it does in a hospital, although we have seen examples where it actually costs more. So what I would say is, in principle, that's the concept. It should cost less, but it doesn't always.
Great, thank you, Denise.
Yep.
Okay, let's see here on my list of questions. We have another question for Paul. I recently canceled my health insurance from GIC, went on with my husband's plan. I heard if I don't buy insurance through the GIC, I might be eligible for a credit or a rebate. Is that true?
Thanks, Erica. GIC has what we call a buyout program. It is available twice a year, one time during annual enrollment and during April and May, and one in the fall. To be eligible for the buyout program, the member has to be enrolled in a GIC health plan from January 1st through June 30th. So for example, this open enrollment coming, if somebody wants to apply for buyout starting July 1, they have to be enrolled in a health insurance plan from January 1st through June 30th to be eligible. If that is the case and they apply for buyout, GIC will then start sending a monthly check to the member for 12 months for 25% of the full cost premium. But again, you have to be enrolled in a health plan through June 30th to be eligible.
Thanks, Paul. And before you go off camera again, we have one individual asking what the advantages might be for signing up for Medicare Part A before retirement.
There is no advantage to sign up for Medicare Part A as long as you continue working after age 65. Your GIC health plan, the non-Medicare plan, is primary. So in many cases, Social Security will send or give you the Medicare Part A coverage upon turning 65. There's no harm if you take it. It's premium free. It has no impact on your benefits because while you're working, GIC health plan, the non-Medicare plan, is the primary payer for benefits. What you do not want to do is enroll in Medicare Part B at age 65 and continue working, because what will happen is the Medicare Part B premium that you pay is of no use to you while you're working because your GIC health plan is primary. So there's no advantage or disadvantage to take the Medicare Part A, but be careful with the Medicare Part B. You should only enroll in Part B once you retire.
Thanks, Paul. In case of a catastrophic illness, is there a maximum dollar amount allowed for hospital care and prescriptions?
I can answer that one. No.
That was an easy one.
Well, there is a maximum out-of-pocket protection, right, in plans? Is that
Are we asking the out-of-pocket or the covered benefit? There's no maximum amount that the plan has no maximum. The plan will pay for your services no matter what the cost. Maybe I have the question wrong.
no? I think you had it right. I may have gotten it wrong.
Okay, I'm just scrolling through the questions here. So I have a general question that we might be able to direct some folks here. Who can I speak to about picking the best plan for me? Whether that's with us or through one of the plans themselves. So I thought that might be a helpful question.
Sorry, I was on mute. We have a really talented team of professionals in our operations unit who will be available to you throughout the annual enrollment period, but not only during the annual enrollment period. So I think trying to look on the slide here if it's not, yeah. So I would suggest folks contact us through the contact form link that's available on the slide in front of you, or the phone number that is available to you there.
Great, thanks, Matt. Another question. How do you determine the tier level for a doctor or facility? We have what we believe to be quality doctors, but pay at the high end for specialists, or one was even increased and we never understood why. So how do we determine the tier level for a doctor or facility?
You want me to take that, Matt?
Yes, please, thanks.
Yeah, so we use data developed by CHIA, and I'm not going to remember what CHIA stands for. The Center for, can you help, Matt?
The Center for Health Information and Analysis.
Thank you. Which is a state agency that collects data from all of the providers in the state. So we follow their rubric. So we don't make it up.
Great. And Denise, could you say a little bit more about where they can find that?
And the tiering information?
Yep.
That's available on the GIC website or by calling the plan that you're in to ask.
Great, thank you. Yep. So we have a couple of behavioral health related questions. So with regard to the 3 free visits per year that we've talked about on one of our slides here, would a psychopharmacologist be covered in that? And if we could just talk a little bit more about what is covered in that and how that's different from the 3 sessions covered by the Mass for You EAP.
That's a good question. I'm not, Denise, do you have a sense of that? I think the way we've set it up is that it's essentially a telehealth behavioral health office visit. Whether a visit with a psychopharmacologist fits into that category, I don't know the answer to that.
As long as it's coded as a behavioral health visit, it would be covered. I'm sorry, I forgot the rest of the question.
It was just if we could talk a little bit about how that is, how those 3 visits are separate from EAP.
Right. Under the EAP, you're entitled to 3 free visits per year per member. That's open to active employees and their dependents. It's not open to retirees. And you can still get those 3 free visits and also 3 free behavioral health telehealth visits under your medical plan. Those are separate entities and will not be counted against one another.
Great, thank you. So let's see, we have a question kind of related to, or definitely related to the merger of Tufts and Harvard Pilgrim. If one is enrolled in a Harvard plan, can one access providers in the Tufts plan given the merger?
No, not right now. As I indicated in this portion of the presentation on this topic, each of those plans will continue to operate as separate plans, as separate companies, much the same way as they have much the same as the way as they do today. Ultimately, the two plans have a substantial amount of work to do over the coming years to fully integrate into one company and offer one consolidated set of plan options. At that point, they will have had to figure out how they address their network of healthcare providers. But until that happens, they will operate as separate companies.
Thanks, Matt. We have another question. I've had many mailings and calls about Medicare Advantage. What happens to my GIC coverage if I switch to Medicare Advantage?
It's probably a Paul question.
Take that.
Yep.
I just want to remind everyone that GIC does offer 5 Medicare plans that retirees can pick from after they turn age 65. Naturally, if you decide to enroll in any Medicare Advantage plan out there through such an organization like AARP, what will happen under Social Security rules is the last application wins. So if you decide to enroll in another Medicare Advantage plan outside of the Commonwealth, you lose your GIC coverage and you are enrolled in that new plan going forward.
Thanks, Paul. Let's see here. Another question. I am interested in the Silver Sneakers program. Why don't we have this benefit in our insurance?
What's it called?
Silver Sneakers.
I'm sorry, I don't know what that is.
I assume it's a broader definition of the fitness benefit, and I would say that we do continually review programs like those when they're offered by our carriers, and that would be another item that we would look comprehensively at through the coming procurement.
Thanks, Matt. Let's see. Just got another question come in. Sorry, I have a lot of screens open here. So, how can the GIC better leverage its purchasing power? If we are the largest purchaser of health insurance in the state, why do I feel like our insurance products are expensive?
Well, I'll say a couple things about that. One, insurance through the GIC is expensive because healthcare in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is expensive. We live in one of the most expensive states for healthcare in the country, and in fact, one of the most expensive places in the world to purchase healthcare. We also have, and we see this through our claims data, our members tend to use the most expensive hospitals and doctors in the state, even more than their counterparts in the private insurance industry. And we also tend to have richer coverage through the GIC than you see in the commercial marketplace. And when I say richer, I mean that more of the costs are covered by your premium than is covered by your copays and deductibles. Now, as I say that, I know it may not feel that way. And the copays and deductibles still, I'm sure, represent a burden for many of you. So we're very mindful of that. I will say, to the question of purchasing power, that is really a central, strategically important question that we will be addressing through the next procurement. I think, as I noted under the challenges section of the slide, we have hospital systems and doctor systems that are continuing to get larger and increase their market power, and we have tended to dilute our purchasing power and our ability to push back on that by spreading out that market power among 6 different health plans. So there are a number of different ways that we could address that. We want to try to be creative. We want to try to learn from what other states are doing. There are a number of potential paths here. I will say that, as Denise has noted earlier, we haven't decided on a strategy yet. We are in the phase of gathering information, gathering data, listening to experts, listening to you. We will listen more to you and we'll have more opportunities for engagement. But the questioner puts his or her finger directly on one of our most strategically important questions that we will have to tackle.
Thanks, Matt. Let's see, I think we probably have time for maybe one more question. Let's see, will anything change about the prescription drug coverage?
Nothing is changing in the coming year around prescription drug coverage. If we were to make a change to the plan design in our prescription drug coverage, we would have noted it here and presented it to our commission. We certainly always evaluate our current offerings, and we'll be looking to the next procurement for sure to make sure that we're providing you the highest value for your premium dollar. I don't know if I could say much more than that. I see Denise perhaps wants to chime in.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is Express Scripts updates its formulary twice a year. And so the formula, they've delayed the January 1st update until April 1st. So the formulary is changing under the active plan as of April 1st, but that's typical. It will change again as of July 1st. That's something that happens every year.
Denise, can you just take a moment to explain what a formulary is?
Oh, right. So it's the list of drugs that are covered by the plan. So lots of drugs come on the market all the time, and the prescription drug pharmacy benefit managers, Express Scripts, and CVS are constantly reviewing those drugs, making sure they're getting the best deal for the members in terms of rebates and coverage and so forth. So it's just the list of covered drugs.
Thanks, Denise. And then since I think we have a couple more minutes, so one more question is, how big an issue is quote unquote surprise billing by out-of-work network providers through the GIC?
So it's not as much of an issue for our members as it is for individuals with private insurance. I think the questioner probably has followed in the news that there has been at the federal level and at the state level a pretty substantial push to solve this problem. For those that don't know what this issue is, there are occasions when an individual goes to an in-network facility, an in-network hospital. You go into the emergency room, for instance, at an in-network emergency room, and you should understand that your copays and deductibles should reflect the fact that you've gone to an in-network hospital, not an out-of-network hospital. Occasionally, there are some unique circumstances where one of the healthcare providers who treats you is out of network, though they're operating in an in-network hospital. And that has at times in the past led to those providers billing that member who received those services for any amount that's not covered by the health insurance company. So this is a real, it's a consumer protection issue. As I said, for the GIC, it's less of an issue. We have a statutory, there's a provision in state law that that prevents surprise billing for GIC members. So the efforts that are underway at the State House and in Washington, D.C. relate to, the private insurance marketplace and the in Medicare as well. So less of an issue for us.
Great, thank you, Matt. And I think that's all the time we've got for questions today.
Great. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Denise and Paul and Cameron and everybody on my team for helping me out today. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your weekend morning to join us. We did have today about 255 people who logged in over the course of this week. We had more than 4,000 people join us for these sessions. We've had fantastic, robust interaction here with you, virtual as it may be. I anticipate that, we will in future years have similar public information sessions. We will have them in person as we did in the past, but I think we will always have a feature that allows you to interact with us without having to leave your home. So we look forward to doing more of that. This is one aspect of our a multi-year effort that's going to have a lot more opportunities for us to engage with you. I think we've heard through these, and we already know this, that retiree benefits and steps that you need to make as you turn 65 is a substantial area of questions. So we may be putting together some new ways to interact with you on that topic and any other topic. So I want to thank you again for your participation. As I said, it helps us to make better decisions when we understand what is important to you. So please stay engaged with us. The contact information at the bottom of the slide here is a great way for you to stay in touch with us on any issues that come up for you as our members. So thank you again. Have a great weekend. Please stay safe, healthy, and take care of all your loved ones while we kind of get through the end of this pandemic.